question and any questions you may have to ask. Next Monday.
That's our internal consultation.
After internal consultations, we propose next Monday, 29th.
It's up to them too.
So, I don't know that it's acceptable to everyone.
Yes. Very much. Very much.
By show of hands.
I don't see any hands from the crowd. Could we then have any questions outside the date? You may have other issues around the... Yes. So we can start, then we go finish this row first and come this way.
Thank you. On the issue of the date, Monday 29th, we have no problem because we are prepared to have election the 9th. Yes. So on the 9th, we don't think we have a problem with that date. However, we need to have clarity on the issue of civic education. Is this time enough for you to advertise and educate the voters that elections will be in a week's time? That is one. Do you have a budget for civic education? Yes. Two, the issue we experienced in some places, especially in Kakamega, where the KIMS kits failed to work and you resorted to manual voting. Do you have now mechanism, and can we agree as what will happen in case we have dysfunctional KIMS kits? Can we then agree that if we go to a polling station and the KIMS kit is not working at 6 a.m., by 6:30 we resort to manual because it affects voter turnout? Because the KIMS kit fails at 6, you keep people waiting until 1 or 2, that's when you resort to manual voting. Can it be an agreed position that immediately we realize that the KIMS kit is not working, 30 minutes from that time we resort to manual? Because that wasting of time for a decision to be made affects the turnout. And then in Kakamega specifically, we've been raising issues with our CRO, and I think we will retreat and raise that matter in our small meeting, but it's just good enough for us also to raise it here. The issue of the POs. Most of the POs in Kakamega have political affiliation, have met politicians, and the CRO has that evidence. So it is of my considered opinion that if you can give us fresh POs, those who have not been taking part in the previous elections, because we have raised that issue time and again with the CRO. The CRO has even done a follow-up on the same, and in some instances confirmed that there are some politicians who have been meeting the POs, and we have no confidence at all with the POs who have conducted elections in Kakamega specifically. I don't know other areas. So we are submitting, yeah, and Kitui Rural. Can I represent you? And Mombasa. So and Veru. It is unanimous that if we can reshuffle, not within the county, say you bring POs from Kisumu, bring them to Kakamega, or POs from Wasingishu, bring them to we should reshuffle them. Not from the same region. Not from the same region, because we have an issue. Like, personally, I have no confidence at all with the POs of Kakamega, because we have evidence and we've followed that matter with the CRO and the respective ROs that they have been compromised. So if those things can be addressed. Lastly, issue of schools. In Kakamega, 90% of polling stations are schools. 85% of tallying centers, constituency tallying centers, are boarding schools. So we need to be very sure that those institutions will be available for us, and if that can be communicated in good time. And lastly, campaign period. You have inconvenienced us. Last time you said there are no campaigns. How do you inconvenience us and again wants to curtail us from campaigning? Because we need to tell our people that elections have been postponed, that come out in large numbers on this particular day. That can only be done in campaigns. So you should allow us to effect the specific article on the campaign period, which says we shall only close our campaigns 48 hours to the elections. So as it stands right now, we believe that campaigns are ongoing until 48 hours to the elections. Thank you.
Any other? If the question has already been asked, please don't repeat it. Yes.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. Yes, my name is Lewis Vera. I come from Nyaki Westward, you know the Menti constituency. I just have one concern. The Commission gazetted on the 9th August 2022 to be the official time when you'll be voting. As you have a different kind of a case whereby one of the candidates was missing in the ballot, and the voting went on at around 5:41 p.m. At the time the commissioner was announcing that you're nullifying the voting for Nyaki Westward. My question is, having gazetted that day for voting, and then one of the candidates was missing, and 5:41 p.m., that's when the commission was gazetting, that's the time the commissioner was telling us that you don't need to vote at that particular time. And they went ahead and opened the ballot boxes, voted all the analysis in the ballot boxes was counted. The returning officer did his work, that is announcing. The tallying was, took place at polling stations, and only one role, which was not played by the returning officer. What I'm asking right away, because we are with the people of Mombasa, Kakamega, and other areas, they did not vote. What about Nyaki West? And we voted. What the position of the commission? Asante.
First of all, Chair, I think we need to make a resolution. On the 29th, we agree with you. This thing must be dispensed in the shortest time possible, so that it doesn't spill over to the propaganda here and there. So I want to concur with that, Chairman, point number one. But two, on the issues raised, I think you can handle them, Chairman, on need basis, on administrative basis, so that you can be able to move forward in the shortest time and with available time. My concern, I agree with some of the issues there. My concern, for example, from where I come from, is this issue of using the stamps to be able to do identification. And although that can also be handled as need basis, but in some places people were returned because in Pokot it's very hot, and our hands have been burnt out, particularly for old people. They've been affected. So when you put in that KIMS kit or that machine, finds a problem, and some POs ended up actually returning people without voting. So I would like, although as I said, Chairman, that can be handled on needs basis, but we need a very clear direction that nobody will be allowed not to vote or chase to vote just because maybe for nature, Mr. Chairman, that your hand cannot be identified by the KIMS kit. Otherwise, on the 29th, Chairman, we agree, we dispense it immediately. Thank you.
Two more this way, then go back.
Good morning. First of all, I want to congratulate our Haraho, Madam Karen, for the good job that she did that day. And of course, the other officers. My question and my concern is, one, I'm afraid that the day that has been set, of which it may not be turned down, in our place it happens to be a market day, and then we may suffer a voter happy day. Remaining days are very few, even to mobilize, and even if we mobilize, I'm afraid that day is going to disadvantage us. Bearing in mind, it is only MCA seat which is being contested. The others are not there. Secondary, my concern also is about the voter purchasing, especially near the polling stations. That day we raise a fund. Myself, I'm afraid that if it is repeated, then not unless we call it up off. Finally, if it is going to be fairly done, we are confident that that process is going to be successful. If it isn't, then, Mr. Chair, we are leaving it to you. Please check for that. Thank you.
I really appreciate this meeting, and I actually want to laud the fact that we've gotten a date of the 29th. I think we agree with that date, and everything needs to go alongside that. There is one concern, Chairman, that I think members would want raised. You've talked about the budget from the CEO to train your staff. These members have actually been disadvantaged on the fact that elections, first of all, I want to ask if this is a general election or a by-election. That's the first thing. And it is important that I get to know, because there's a lot of confusion in terms of how we're going to approach this election.
This is a postponed general election.
Postponed general election. Yes. Thank you for that clarity. Good. The next thing then is about the cost. And I think members might not want to say it, but it's important that we say it. Because these members, all of them have been disadvantaged. They have actually gone into extra costs because of an effect that was brought by the Commission. So as you train your officers, as you look for budget from the national government, these people are going into their pockets. It will be prudent for you, because you say the company has taken responsibility. How, we do not know. Let that responsibility also come. These people are supposed again to go and train their agents. Who is going to shoulder this on the fact that already we had trained our people and we actually moved ahead? Are we going to be supported by the Commission, or we are supposed to take responsibility on the aspects that has been created to us by the Commission? Two, Mr. Chairman, it is shocking to know that even when the batches of these ballot papers arrived, the commissioners were not all aware. It's shocking, because I think that at that point is when we got this issue, where our ballot papers, our photographs, our portraits, and our names were jumbled up. If we could tell you the amount of agony that we have had to go through because of that particular mistake. But the Chairman, it will be the responsibility of the Commission to retribute these members. The last one, when the Chairman, is about the ballots. Because there is a lot of information out there, and I want assurance from you and the commissioners that we are going to have enough ballot papers for the polling stations. Because there is an information that the ballot papers might not be enough, and I will not want to doubt that. Why? Because already, from what we are already seeing, we've already seen a blunder, and we cannot say that we are comfortably seated and that the Commission is going to do what is supposed to be done. So assure us, assure me, probably, that we are going to have enough ballot papers for every voter that will turn up. So please, Mr. Chairman, let me know if you're going to support these members in terms of the financials that they are going to suffer. There are people that are suffered in millions of shillings, Chairman, on your own account. Millions of shillings. So please assure these members that we're going to do something on mistakes that were yours. That is mine, Chairman. But I agree with what the governor candidate for saying. Please reshuffle these POs. It is within your powers to bring POs from other counties to another county. Otherwise, impartiality might not, because you've actually heard from what these members said. Thank you.
I would like us to answer those minutes.
I have an issue
bordering on a court matter we have. Thank you, sir. I have an issue bordering on a court matter we have, which I needed to raise to the commission because it ties on court application.
So let him speak then. But we would like to answer those things.
How much?
So we can allow another round.
The factual proposal on the date is not too far away from what we were proposing. It's just that the fact we had come with possibly the 30th date, and I had the CEO saying Monday, Tuesday. There's a tradition we've set ourselves that our elections are on Tuesday. But my appeal then was that we conclude, it's okay, Monday, Tuesday is still fine with us. But I just said there's a tradition of holding elections on Tuesday in somewhere near other places, the general elections, blah, blah, blah. It becomes sequentialized. But we were also asking that you open the window to a campaign framework between either today to probably Friday, depending on what day you agree on, or Saturday. And then thirdly, I wanted to respond to what the proposal by the CEO about an election, about tents and alternative venues. You run the risk of massive confusion in terms of the extent of which you're looking at a county. Watu wamezoea miaka 20 wanapiga hapa, leo umewaambia sijui umegazeti mahali nyingine. If it is possible to consult with the Ministry of Education. Unfortunately, nobody asked for this crisis. We are in it. I have a day off for these affected areas in terms of school, whatever it's called, holiday. So I was trying not to avoid the word holiday, so that we can be able to have these elections in the designated polling centers or stations, so that people are able to know that I just drop off to that regular place. But on the totality, I think I also share in the issue of the POs. I think since it's a fresh election, in a way, let's have fresh people, so who are not because they are known to others. So that, but I was just not for your idea that you bring those from Kakamega to ours, but just look for a formula that is able to allocate these POs. And the IEBC has a massive staff complement who are permanent staff who probably now are not as engaged. You can also look at that possibility of deploying some of these staffs who don't even need much training, who already understand the electoral process. And lastly is to wish the commission well. I've served as a commissioner myself, and I know the intrigues of a commission. I can almost say in this whole idea that commissioners are always faced with these kinds of emotive conversations whenever there is some matter of this kind of magnitude. And I wish you well as a commission.
Last one. Then we answer questions, then we shall come back for round 2, please.
Mimi nitachukua nafasi kuongea kwa Kiswahili. Maana ndo lugha nafikiri nitaeleweka vizuri. Chairman, nafikiri sisi kama Mombasa tumepeleka kesi. In fact, I'm here to inform you that we have a matter that we have filed last week seeking to compel the commission to declare a date, because we felt that we had postponed the elections indefinitely, which for us was unjustified. Kwetu sisi ilikuwa, we felt it was unjustified. So we filed a suit, and our intention was we wanted the election on 24th. Date mlikuwa mmeweka. That was our intention. 23rd. That was our date. Na tumefile kesi kotini. So tumejua kwamba kesi hii inakuja leo. The ruling is today. And we know definitely that you've called this meeting because you are preempting that suit that is there. You are preempting that suit. Tumefile suit. Ndo nyinyi sasa mumetwita. Ngoja nimalize. Commission. You know, we've gone through some agony. And it's only fair you listen to us. It's only fair that you listen to us, because hamkuwa na wakati wote mmetusikiza. Mlikuwa mnajiamulia wenyewe kibinafsi na mmetusukuma mpaka mahali mmetusukuma. So sisi tumewasukuma pia mahali tumewasukuma. Kwa hivyo tumefika hapa kwa sababu nyinyi mnahitajika mu file a response in those suits. They're in Nairobi, they're in Mombasa, and they're in Kakamega. So I want to say this. Sisi, we want to go for the election on 23rd ile mlioweka. That is our position. Thank you, Commissioner.
Mr. Toya, I hear you. Would you really want to insist on that? Election tomorrow?
Chairman, there is a matter pending in the High Court.
I'm aware
And
of
there is a determination that is going to be made
Yes,
by 12 o'clock today.
that's okay.
So,
Mr.
we are
Toy-
sure that by the time probably we make this resolution, you will have an opportunity probably to file a response, but I'm not too sure exactly what the court will say.
That's
all I
okay.
want to say.
That's okay. Mr. Toya, you know I practiced law in Mombasa, and you are there.
And I know.
You are covering me when I was practicing law
Very true.
in the courts. That time you are a reporter, and I really appreciate that. But we are here not because of the court cases. We call this meeting not because of anything else. We call this meeting because as a commission, we felt that these elections must take place. These elections must take place as soon as possible because we need to move on. We need to have finality. We need to do party lists which cannot be finalized without these elections taking place. So it's not because of the court cases. We are here because as a commission we believe through dialogue we can solve any matter that is standing ahead of us. We have done this with presidential candidates. We held meetings and solved a lot of things. And we believe through dialogue we can overcome anything. And that's why we are here. Not because of court cases. Let the court cases go on. I'm sure those of you who filed cases will consider withdrawing them because we have solved the problem that you wanted to solve. So I think you need to consider that. But let me now get to the questions that you have asked. Civic education, these are operational questions touching on budget. Maybe the CEO can touch on that. Budget for civic education. The KIMS kits, which were dysfunctional. How fast can we turn to manual? I think that's a good concern. I believe the issue of the approvals for purposes of dysfunctional kits is a genuine concern. Conflicted POs, DPOs, and clerks. We are saying this being one election out of 6. Our arrows then consider the complaints from the candidates. I think that's a genuine concern. You can take for constituency, take from the next constituency or something like that, where there are complaints, so that you listen to the complaints and manage that. I think the returning officers will help us there to deal with that.
Is it can or should, Chairman?
Well, they listen to complaints. Normally, when the candidates complain, maybe one is not complain, the other one will oppose what this one has done. So the arrow should listen to all of them and make a determination. Maybe they are suitable to one and not suitable to the other, but we want the arrows to listen to that. I would also like the commissioners to maybe to complain, to look at that issue. Issue of schools, campaign period and schools. Okay. Campaign period. I will say something about campaign period. Nyaki West, I think that is an issue. Operations, commissioners, you can weigh in on that. Water verification, alphanumeric search. Professor, I think that's your area. You can weigh in on that, and cost of training. So let me start with Marijan, most of them being operational questions. And then the remaining I will ask commissioners to weigh. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I will start with the one for civic education. First of all, the responsibility of the Commission, as far as education is concerned, the Commission does not do civic education. It does voter education and not civic education. And therefore, for us, we are going to budget for, as usual, 2 ward-based voter educators. That is something that we are going to budget for. and sent to the National Treasury to enable those people to do voter education, not civic education. If you look at Article 88, it will tell you that we don't do civic education, we do voter education. Then on the issue of KIMS kit, yes, we had a challenge in Kakamega and Makueni, and purely those are issues that are resolvable. In Kakamega, it was due to logistics. We normally divide the country into various regions, and the KIMS kits for another region were taken to Kakamega. I think that's the reason why we had that challenge. The CRO was trying to use one of the SD cards to duplicate, and he could be able to do very few of them, and time was actually going on. That's why we had that challenge. But now that we have got few electoral areas with this postponed general election, that should be something that will be resolved without any problem. But already also we have a procedure for utilization of the printed register in case there is any challenge. And the reason why there was a time taken to provide the CRO with a responsibility for him to use physical register was because he was also trying to do his part to make sure that we can be able to use the physical register, the KIMS kit. Normally the procedure that we give them is that before we use the printed register, there must be a confirmation by ICT officer that indeed the KIMS kit cannot be able to work, we cannot be able to replace. So in that circumstance, actually, we gave him the authority. It was around midday. And yes, I agree with you that it took time. This time it's not going to be like that. It's going to be efficient. One, because we are going to ensure that the KIMS kit that are going to be there, they are designated for that specific place. And two, unlike the general election whereby we are communicating with so many people at the same time, here is going to be a bit different because our focus will only be to those specific areas, few specific areas. So I want to believe that it's going to be an efficient process. I think Chairman has talked about the issue of POs. The returning officers, the county returning officers have heard about that. Regarding the issue of schools and polling stations availability, I did indicate that we are going to communicate with the Ministry of Education. So if they are going to allow us to use the schools for that specific day, then that's good. But if not, what we are saying is that we are not going to move very far from there, just adjacent to the school, so that if the schools are going to be used by our children, then adjacent to that, maybe in the playing field, in that specific area, we can just pitch tent and we can be able to. But the first action we are going to take is to write to the Ministry of Education to see if they can allow us to use those as specific polling stations. I think those are the operational areas, Chairman, that the issue of budget to support the candidates. Chairman, I'm not sure whether the National Treasury can be able to foot that bill, but I hear you. I think in terms of what you have spent, you've spent colossal amount of money to prepare yourselves for this, and what you're asking is something that has not normally been budgeted for. It's an exception item. Probably could explore talking with the National Treasury to see if that is something that can be facilitated. But previously, that was an item that we have never budgeted for to fund candidates for the purpose of by-election. So it's something that is out of budgetary allocation.
Not by-election, postponed election.
Postponed, yeah, postponed. Thank you for correction. Postponed general election. Assurance that the ballot papers are going to be enough. I think we did indicate that the ballot papers are going to be printed in accordance with the number of voters in those polling stations. So we guarantee that we are going to have enough for the purpose of those by-elections. I think, Chairman, the rest is basically for the Commission to answer. Thank you very much.
I will say something about campaign period, but before that, on the
I think we have an elaborate procedure. As we have said it many times before the general election, the default identification mechanism for a voter is biometric identification, which means fingerprints. If that does not work, then there is the option of using identity card numbers, and we call it alphanumeric search. You enter the ID number into the system. And so there is no need, if somebody's fingers is not being identified, there is no reason why they should be turned away. You just take the ID number, get the ID number, and insert into the kit. And usually, when you do the initial biometric identification, your finger is being searched against, if the police station has 700 voters, 700 times 10 fingers, that is 7,000, isn't it? So it is searching this finger against 7,000. But when you do an ID search and then the details of the voter pops up to the screen, there is an opportunity to do one-on-one match. This time that finger, the voter will be invited to put their finger on the kits once again, but this time it will be matching with the one on the screen. So in most cases it will identify, but if should that fail again, then we have a supervisory mode authorization by the PO to enable that person to vote. So there is no reason for somebody not to be allowed to vote just because the finger cannot be identified. But let me also mention that this time we will be having fewer electoral areas, and therefore we have a lot of kits available to us. Ideally, we have 3 extra kits for every ward. And this time, actually, we have even doubled that. But this time, we can even increase the number. In the event that there are failures of kits, then we shouldn't have problem replacing them, because there will be a number of them that will be prepared that can be used easily for purposes of replacing any that is not working. So we don't anticipate problems like what was observed in Kakamega.
In our brief consultative meeting before coming, we anticipated that you'll ask the question about campaign. And we say that you can campaign until 48 hours to polling day. So please, let's make this meeting short. Let's make this meeting short so that you can go on and... Yes.
I want to say something on that, Chair.
Yes. And this will be, what we have said here will be gazetted. It will be in the gazette.
I'm looking at the proposed date of 29th, Chair.
Yes.
As the day that we conduct the elections for all the remaining positions. If you look at that 29th, less the 48 hours, which is equivalent to 2 days. Yeah. I hope I'm correct.
You're right.
I did not miss the math. Yeah. So I got an A. Professor Gule was my professor. He just so we have only, if 29th less 2 days, we have only, how many days? 4 days.
Yeah.
4 days for campaign. That is too short, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Toya wants election tomorrow.
Let me finish.
Yeah, go ahead, carry
what I
on.
was proposing, Chair, if we are allowed to campaign till end of the month, end of this month. Today is 22nd. We have only 9 days to 31st. You had your chance. Let me talk. It's a proposal. It's not the finality. Chair, please. It's my proposal. It's not even a candidate, Chair. It's not even a candidate. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So, thank you. I think your motion has sorry. Please.
Please allow me, Chair.
Let's hear him out. Let's hear him
out. During the first week of September.
Your motion has been defeated by the yes. Please, let's not make this a long meeting. I think we have, yeah.
I'm just kindly asking for clarity with respect to Wajenga Watch, wiper candidates. Actually, there were anomalies in the ballot paper. That's why the election has been postponed. So I want a clarity whether I am in the ballot, because actually that was the reason as well. Because the same member actually saying that actually error again a problem that can occur.
Yes, I think Wajenga was I think the reason the issue has been addressed, and I think the ballot papers reflect the true candidates, and I think you'll be in the ballot. I think there was also, sorry, 1 minute. There was a question on Nyaki West with arrow. Yeah, so there will be fresh ballot boxes, fresh ballot papers. So you should not have any difficulty.
Mine is very good.
Yeah.
I was a victim of IEBC 2017, and now we are in IEBC. Sasa Chair, I concur with the date, the 29th. It's a fair date. Number two, POs have to be reshuffled. They have to be reshuffled. Number three, Chair, how about the elected candidates who vied successfully on the 9th? Are they allowed? They should not be allowed to act as agents, because then they become agents of intimidation.
Yes, that's wrong. Yes.
They do.
No.
I am telling you the truth, Chairman.
No.
In a constituency like Rongai, when they act as agents, they intimidate voters to vote a certain way.
They are also voters in those places.
That is now Chair, close the meeting. Oh, now we are diverting. Chair, people are diverting now. Close the meeting.
You see, Chair, because it is not a by-election, it is a postponed election. So the previous agents who were there before should be the agents that would preside over this.
We are talking of agents of candidates. Yes. And the candidates are free to choose agents. Yes. So the commission cannot be by agents. We shall only come in on your complaints about the POs, DPOs, and clerks, which the arrows have been directed to look into your complaints and ensure there is fairness in the process. I think
that's a general on the issue of POs, I think that's a general way of answering us. I raised the issue with my CRO, and he told me the powers are vested in the commission. You are the ones who are supposed to direct him and give him a budget in case of any reshuffles. So if he does not have a budget to reshuffle, he will not do anything about that concern.
The CEO, the accounting officer.
And now listening.
Yeah?
Let the CEO handle that. If he gets the report from the arrows, then he will communicate accordingly in terms of budget. Yes. That is his area. He's the one with the...
I said you have so much staff across the country. Why can't you deploy?
What we normally do, in the case of those eventualities, then the constituency or officer can actually pick from the next constituency. So we don't have time to train freshers. We look for people who have participated in the previous on the 9th of August. And I think these are issues that will be sorted out.
Need basis.
The arrows and the yes. So thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you.
I was talking about the issue of 29. First of all, I support my friend here because of the time for the company. The second thing, I don't want to end the judgment of the case of the case. It can go either way.
The present results, we know the present results. Verification. Tunataka election kesho.
Let me put it this way. The Supreme Court matter will have a life of its own.
Yes.
And everybody has a right to go to court.
But I'm talking about the date.
The date
because
of...
if it's thrown away, then the president-elect is going to be...
No. Let me help you there. I'll help you there. If you look at the constitutional timelines, the parties have until today to file the case in the Supreme Court. No, just listen to me. I listen to you, also listen to me. And then the Supreme Court has 14 days to determine. So it doesn't affect the elections we are talking about here. Yeah, are we together? Yeah. So thank you. Now, I think we shall have these two, only these two, 1, 2, 3, and then we close the meeting. Yeah, 1, 2, 3.
Secondly, we need confirmation to the desk on transfer of the staff, which actually some of them, you know very well, been affected by courts. So we need that one from you on.
Yeah. And next.
Thank you, Chair, for this opportunity. I listened carefully to the CEO speaking on the questions that were raised by various members here. And when it came to the issue of cost that we have incurred in about 20 days, by the time we are going to elections, we'll have had an extra expenditure of 20 days, over and above what we budgeted. That's almost an equivalent of a whole month of a campaign. And it is not just enough for anyone to downplay that. A lot of members here are suffering. Some of them are not employed, and they are able to mobilize their resources. Today, this is a problem that is not of our making. It was a problem that was mentioned by the Commission. We would like to have a firm position as to how that issue is going to be handled. Otherwise, some people here may not be elected because they are not going to finance anything beyond that.
Yeah. So the last one. Yeah.
That proposal of the 29 is a unanimous decision of the Commission, or is it a decision made by certain members? I think that is important so that then you don't fall into the usual situation and later get worried when there are issues that are not. And the second question is on the issue of the votes. It has been mentioned, of course, it has been agreed that there has been a problem, particularly in Kakamega and Mombasa. So as far as the audience part is concerned, a question which we wanted to seek confirmation on is whether the Commission will allow an expert inspection of the districts, so that we then don't just leave it to the Commission, but all the parties and stakeholders are satisfied that the districts are going to be functional for the purpose intended. So those are the questions.
Okay. Right. So is it a unanimous decision by the Commission? I believe the commissioners are all here. And we had a caucus, a brief caucus before we came. Maybe if there's is it a unanimous decision? Do you want them to stand up one by one? The commissioners are all in agreement of this, but this date is more for the stakeholders yourselves. As the commissioners want this election done like yesterday, because it is slowing us down also. They need to sit down and calculate the formula of party list and do allocation. They can't do without these elections happening, because it determines also the strength of the parties in parliament and the county assemblies. So the commissioners want to finalize and on a lot of things, and this election needs to be disposed of as soon as possible. So the commissioners are with you and you are with us. That's why we are all here today. Issue of Kim's kids, I think the CEO has explained, and I think the issues of expenses has been explained by the accounting officer. Unless there's any commissioner who wants to say anything, I want to close this meeting.
Close the meeting.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. The commission work on behalf of all Kenyans and we appreciate that. I would have been happy to hear the information that going in the future, what are your contingency plans? And if you don't have it now, please arrange to have a sitting and make sure that such a thing doesn't happen again in the future.
Absolutely.
My complaint was, it was a mixture of ballot papers. It would have been easy to fly from wherever to where it was required. Possible. But we didn't have a place. My complaint was, errors happen. But what is a plan to handle those errors? Thank you.
So, you guys have anything, or I close the meeting?
On the errors, I think it's good for you to understand that when we do the ballot paper printing, they are prepared in pallets. And a pallet is not just one constituency. Sometimes it could be more than a constituency. And so, because of the sensitivity of the ballot papers, we do not open to inspect until the election day or a day to the election. So these pallets were wrapped, sealed, and we could not open before to determine whether there are errors on the ballot papers or not. It only became apparent upon opening for purposes of distribution. And you can understand the scenario we operate in as a country. If we had opened these pallets a week before the election, it will have been a news headline all over the country. So it's part of that why we have come to discover these disparities late in the day. Okay, but going forward, we already have.
That may be so, but this is a commission that is supposed to be efficient, so that even if that happens, it would have been possible to reach a candidate and inform him there are complications. If I get a candidate getting to know at the ballot box that his name is not in
But we apologize for that. You want us to do how many times?
That is so, but in future, that's all we are doing.
Yeah, future.
Now, in future, that's what we are addressing. Usually there is ballot paper proof, and all of you sign a ballot paper proof. The commission had submitted or transmitted the ballot paper proof correctly, but these errors happened at the printing plant, okay? And because we were not in a position to open those ballots before the election, we were not able to find out there were errors. But now we are ensuring that the proofs are sent is what will be printed.
The challenge is what you did after getting to know.
Yeah.
I think we address ourselves to that.
Yeah, let me say this, that lesson learned, we apologized. Immediately after the elections, we shall have what we call a post-election evaluation, which then will inform the next election. And I believe such mistakes should not be repeated. We need perhaps to trust each other more, have ballot papers opened when they arrive, candidates inspect them and ensure that this cannot be repeated. So this is what we normally do, is we shall do a post-election evaluation and write a report, and hopefully some of the things we have seen will then be informed by legislation in Parliament, and some of you who will be in the House will then help us to have a better election in future.
Good practice when I was in the commission.
Yes.
It's not to sign commissioners from the various regions. The sign is there, you swap so that there is a balance.
Yes. Next year I'll be retired from here, but I'll leave my handover notes and ensure that all these things you have said will be captured. Thank you very much. I wish you well in the journey remaining. So please campaign peacefully, and let's have Monday, 29th October elections. Thank you.